Hey YouTube, today we are watching a educational video, reacting to an educational video about it. It's from my favorite science channel, Riddle. Scientists spent 14 months in Antarctica. That's what has happened to their brains. And yes, I am in a closet because I don't know why. Because to be honest, I don't know why. So anyway, let's start it.
That the bigger the brain, the smarter the person. But the brain of Albert Einstein weighed only about 1.2 kilograms or 2.6 pounds, which is less than average. By contrast, the person who had the largest recorded brain at 2.85 kilograms or 6.28 pounds was...
Wait, 6.28 pounds? Mine's probably like less than that. Mine's probably like 1 pound, bro. Like, I got the smallest brain, bro. Like, it's not even funny.
Diagnosed with delayed development. This most mysterious of human organs never stops surprising, and researchers never stop searching for the boundaries of what the human brain is capable of. So, how might long-term exposure to extreme conditions of isolation and low temperatures affect an adult's brain and even their entire body? 8 scientists and 1 cook who participated in an Antarctic expedition have first-hand knowledge of these effects. 5 men and 4 women spent 14 months at a German research station called Neumayer III. They went almost completely without personal space and contacts with the outside world.
Wait, they went that long without contacting people? Oh my God. Imagine not, like, talking to anyone. Like, I would get so lonely. There's something in my eye.
Social isolation and monotonous environment is the closest thing on Earth to what a space explorer on a long mission might experience. It's very exciting to see the white desert at the beginning, but then it's always the same, says physiologist Alexander Stan. He started his investigation while at the Charité Universitätsmedizin Berlin. In cooperation with Professor Dr. Simon Kuhn of the Max Planck Institute for Human Development, they agreed to determine whether an Antarctic expedition had an impact on the structure and functioning of the human brain. Animal studies had revealed that similar conditions...
So they're probably experimenting with animals now, too? Didn't that end like 50 years ago?
Can harm the hippocampus, a brain area crucial for memory and navigation. Rats are better at learning when the animals are housed with companions or in an enriched environment than when alone or in a bare, empty cage. But whether this was true for a human's brain was unknown. Other scientists joined the group in the summer. However, before that, the team had to survive alone in the long darkness of the polar winter, with temperatures of minus 50 degrees Celsius.
Now that right there, minus 50 degrees Celsius. You would have to actually be born in Antarctica to actually adapt to those temperatures. Like, if I just went there, like, I would freeze my balls off, like...
That's minus 58 Fahrenheit, when evacuation and deliveries of food and equipment are impossible. Before, during, and after their mission, the participants completed computer-based tests evaluating concentration, memory, cognitive reaction time, and spatial thinking. Regular blood tests were carried out to measure levels of the brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, a protein responsible for promoting the growth of nerve cells and synapses in the brain. The researchers used magnetic resonance imaging to determine changes in brain volume, and specifically in the hippocampus in 8...
Hippocampus? What? This ain't no hippopotamus looking. Hippo. It has hippo in it. Hip-ho.
Of the participants. It's only the hippocampus that supports the growth of new neurons. A group of 9 control participants matched for age and gender to the others and who didn't stay at the station underwent identical tests. Measurements on the polar explorers revealed changes in the hippocampus area called the dentate gyrus, which volume was 7.2% smaller on average compared to the analogous area in the control group. This shrinkage correlated with the results of the cognition tests, which showed effects on both spatial abilities and selective attention, which is necessary to ignore irrelevant information. Repeated testing is normally associated with improvements in test results. The learning effect, however, was reduced in the participants who underwent the tests. Those changes were also...
So what the man's trying to say, they actually lost memory from being too cold. It put them into shock, and their brains got smaller because it froze. What is this logic?
Associated with a drop in BDNF levels. The hippocampus is highly vulnerable to stressors like isolation, Stan says, but it's also very responsive to stimulation that comes from social interactions and a variety of landscapes to explore. Therefore, there are good reasons to believe that this change is reversible. However, there have been no indications of that so far. The BDNF levels in the polar explorers dropped below the initially recorded level after just 3 months in Antarctica, and even a month and a half after they returned home. This level did not recover to normal. The good news is that the brain can perfectly adapt by compensating for the loss of even a significant chunk of it.
Wait a minute, so how is someone's brain after they've been isolated in their house of COVID-19 for like a year and they can't talk to anyone and they lose focus and they lose their self-doubt and then they go crazy, they snap because your synapses snap, then fap, and that looks like eyes looking at me like, what the hell, bro, you better get your eye looking at,
Neuroscientists from the California Institute of Technology, or Caltech, examined 6 people between 20 and 30 years old who had had half of...
Hey, you!
There's that.
Me. Yeah, you!
Yo, I had that hairstyle one time.
Don't you want to play something different? Bring it up!
Their brain removed in childhood due to severe epilepsy. Their brain activity was in many respects similar to the brain functioning of healthy people, since the remaining half of their brains compensated for the loss of the missing half's computing resource.
So, they got half of their brain removed? That makes them dumb, right? I would hate to be them.
Given the small number of participants, these results should be viewed with caution. Still, it may be concluded, and this is supported by initial findings in rodents, that extreme environmental conditions can have an adverse effect on the brain. As a next step, the researchers plan to study whether or not physical exercise might be able to help protect against the observed changes in the brain. And what about adaptation effects to extreme conditions on the human body and psyche? The organizers of another Antarctic expedition from Kazakhstan addressed this problem. True, this expedition lasted only 11 days. Assessments of physical condition were carried out only every 3 days. That is, 4 times, in the participants whose average age was 29 years old. On day 1 of the expedition, the polar explorers demonstrated a high level of interest and tension due to their expectations and first experience in Antarctica. Then, their interest dropped due to the monotonous landscape and repetitious daytime activities. But the tension contributed to their being mobile, thus helping to quickly involve their bodies in adapting to the environment. The peak of adaptation occurred on day 4, when there was a jump in blood pressure due to adaptation of their cardiovascular systems and...
Meaning it put them in a shock, meaning they couldn't do their physical activities because they were not strong enough. They were not healthy. I don't know.
Their psycho-emotional state. From the next day, these indicators steadily declined. Their heart rates decreased sharply and remained at that level for the rest of the period of their stay, with the frequency of their breaths decreasing at a constant and consistent rate. Their emotional state began to improve upon that turning point, and towards the end of the expedition, it approached the previous maximum value that had been recorded on day 1. From day 5, when cold, wind, physical activities for 8 to 10 hours a day, and 2 meals per day became routine, the crew members' indicators stabilized. It was crucial during this critical period to establish a
To be honest, I don't even eat 3 meals. I eat 2 meals. I eat breakfast and dinner. I skip lunch. But I shouldn't though. But anyway.
favorable atmosphere within the group between the people who didn't know each other. But this task turned out to be the most difficult. Relative comfort in communication was achieved only on the last day of the expedition, when the team reached the South Pole. And if the mission had continued, the psychological indicators could have gotten even worse. And what are the effects of cold and loneliness? Animal tests demonstrated that
Wait, hold up. I want to guess. The effects are cold and loneliness. Means you go crazy, I guess, and you have the same attitude as a homeless man. I don't know.
rodents became aggressive, exposed to a constant fear. They showed an inadequate response to threats if isolated for at least 2 weeks. This state is accompanied by accumulation of Tachykinin peptides in the rodent's brain. When experimenters blocked these peptides, no negative effect of isolation on the rodent's psyche could be detected. Similar substances have been found in the human brain, so the results of the experiment may help.
Hey, what are you doing?
I'm editing my video with the War 9.
What kind of YouTube videos do you make?
Makeup videos.
Which one's better?
So my favorite feature of the iPhone is
What's so funny?
No more treats for you.
It's so laggy.
Help in the future treatment of some mental illnesses. Our body fights against cold until the very end. When our body temperature drops to between 35 and 32 Celsius, or 95 and 89.6 Fahrenheit, blood vessels constrict first, limiting the flow of hot blood to the limbs, thus reserving it for the heart and brain. Next, the hairs on the body stand up, emulating something like a heat-insulating fur coat. Next, a person starts shivering violently, experiencing convulsions as muscle fibers contract uncontrollably in an attempt to warm the body. When the shivering stops, which increases 5-fold the body's ability to raise its own temperature, the blood from the dilated vessels flows to the extremities, producing a sensation of heat. When the temperature drops to between 30.5 and 29.5 Celsius, or 86.9 and 85.1 Fahrenheit, the person falls into a coma. Their heart stops, followed by death of the brain from oxygen starvation. However, the processes of dying are so slow in the cold that, if rescued, it helps doctors to bring frozen people back from death. So, how would you deal with changes in your brain if you found yourself in extreme conditions? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you like this video? Then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. And don't forget to recommend us.
Anyway, that was a very good educational video right there about how your brain would react if you stayed in cold temperatures for so long, 14 months, basically. And yeah, like, y'all go check them out. Riddle. Like, I've been watching them for like 2 months now, probably. Anyway, I hope y'all have a good rest of your day.